Hey, good morning, Christ Church. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. I know Drew already asked you guys, but how are you guys doing today? We good? Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of energy here. It is youth takeover, and as you know, junior hires and high schoolers have a ton of energy, and I see a lot of junior hires just still sitting in the back. Hey, you guys can sit in normal chairs if you want today, but I like it. Go in the bleachers. We always pack out the back for 11 o'clock when I normally teach them. Because like Drew said, if you guys don't know me, I'm in charge of youth ministry here. So I'm usually in the back classroom at 11 teaching those guys, which is good news for all of you guys that I'm used to teaching youth. Because if you know junior hires, they got really short attention spans, right? Their thinking goes left and right, up and down all at the same time. It's going like crazy, right? It's so hard to keep their attention. So when I teach them, I have to go quickly before I lose them, right? And so lucky for you guys, since I'm used to that, we won't be running too long today. You guys will get out of here. You can go get your donuts, go take a nap, go watch football. Yeah. So we got that going on. And by the way, if this is your first time, like Drew said, fill out those connection cards and welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is an interesting weekend to join us if this is your first time. You guys are probably thinking like, what's going on at this place? The kids have taken over. They're running all over the place. They were at the doors. There's a kid speaking. Who knows what's going on? And maybe some of you guys have been here before and you're squinting like, why isn't Drew wearing a vest? What's happening? What? My name's Brian. I'm not Drew. I actually thought about wearing a vest. I got some comments this morning when I showed up like, hey, you're not wearing a vest. I thought you were going to wear a vest. Because Drew, our lead pastor, he always wears a vest every single weekend. And so I thought about it, but I actually didn't wear a vest because I think the vests that he wears, I think they have like a sort of power to them, where ever since he started wearing the vests on the weekends, his sermons got longer and longer. And I feel like there might be a correlation. I feel like you put the vest on and it's an automatic extra 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'm not going to wear the vest. I'll just wear a shirt. Even though this isn't normally how I dress, if you guys know me, or if you don't know me, I'm going to tell you anyway. So I always wear short sleeve button-down collared shirts with different patterns on them. If you guys have seen me on the weekends, you'll know. You can spot me from miles away because they're usually really brightly colored. Everybody's like, what is he wearing right now? It's just like, whoa, hey, it shocks you. I got all sorts of different patterns. I have one of my favorite ones is bananas. It's a shirt and it just has a bunch of bananas on it. I have one that has limes. I got watermelons, pineapples. That's a colorful one. Just all the fruits. But then I got some flamingos, some toucans, penguins, all sorts of stuff. The list goes on and on. In fact, I have 28 of them. 28 short sleeve button-down collared shirts in my closet. Yes, I counted. Yeah, that's weird. I know, that's okay. You can harass me later. So I know that I have 28 of them, and I always cycle through them because I want to, wear them all. That's literally all I wear is just those types of shirts, and I want to cycle through so nobody's seen me in the same shirt like 2 weeks in a row, 2 days in a row. Actually, last year, my first year of college, those are all I wear because that's all I wear every day, no matter where I'm going. I kept a list on my phone, like in the notes section of the shirts that I wore on which day, on which classes, so that every day when I got dressed in the morning, I would look at my list and be like, all right, already wore the flamingos in this class, let me try this one, so I could cycle through all 28, so every class would see me in a different one every day. Pretty genius if you ask me. I was just telling someone the other day, and they thought it was really weird. I think it's just genius, and you guys should get on my level, but that's what that is. So not the vest and not the fun colored shirts, but when I wear those shirts, I usually stand out, big time. My brother describes my attire as loud. He says I wear loud shirts. He's like, you dress really loudly, whatever that means. He says my clothes are obnoxious, because they kind of are. That's what he means when he says loud. It's like they stand out. No matter where you are, no matter where I am, it's like, whoa, there's Brian, there's his shirt. And people make comments all the time. I didn't say compliments, I said comments, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's like, wow, you're wearing pineapples. Hey, okay. It's like, thank you. Yes, I am. Some people love it, some people hate it, but regardless, it stands out. It's definitely kind of unique. You don't really see people with those all the time. It's really colorful. It makes a statement. So it stands out. It's unique. It's like, whoa, there's Brian's shirts. And people always ask me what shirts I'm going to wear at different days. I go on and on. I love my shirts. But enough about me. Let's get into the Bible. That's what we're here for, right? So if you guys will open with me in the Bibles around you or on your phones, we're going to go into Exodus. Picking up where we have been talking in the past few weeks. We're going to go to chapter 17 today. If you open with me to Exodus 17, I'm going to open to it also in my Bible. If we could take a look here, see this. It's purple, and it has a nice little floral pattern on it. I don't know if you can see it in the back, kind of beautiful. So the problem is I don't have a CSB Bible, Christian Standard Bible. That's a version we preach out of here. And I don't have one. I like ESV, which is the way to go. If you ask me, it's what biblical scholars use, whatever. ESV, get on it. Anyways, here at Christ Church Surprise, we preach out of CSB, and I was like, I don't have a CSB Bible. What am I going to do? So I was rummaging through our house. My mother buys a new Bible every week. So I was flipping through all of her Bibles, and I found some CSB ones, and it was either this one or the pink one. And this one matches my shirt better. And so I was like, well, I guess we're doing this one. So that's a little bit about me. All right, so Exodus 17, we're picking up where Drew left off last weekend. If you guys were here, and if you guys weren't here, I'll explain a little bit. And even if you were here, because if you're anything like me, you come to the sermon one weekend, you get it, and then the next weekend you're like, shoot, what did we even talk about? And we all need a refresher. So last weekend, we were talking about the Israelites. They're traveling around. They're in the wilderness right now. They just got out of Egypt. So if you've been here with us like the past month, you know we were discussing the Israelites being in Egypt with the Egyptians, and they're being oppressed, and God finally sends main homie Moses to get them out of there, right? And so God's sending these plagues to show his power to Pharaoh to get the Israelites out of there. Anyways, they're finally out now, and Moses parted the Red Seas. It was really cool. And then the Egyptians who were chasing them got wiped out. So the Israelites were following their story right now. And last week, they were complaining because they were really hungry. They were like, I need some food. God, we're dying of starvation right now. Set us up, hook us up with some food, please. And then God sends down bread from heaven that they get, and they can collect that and eat that, and God provides for them in that way. So this week, and we're picking up after that, in chapter 17 right at the top, if you guys will follow along with me. The entire Israelite community left the wilderness of sin, moving from one place to the next, according to the Lord's command. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So the people complained to Moses, "Give us water to drink." "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses replied to them. "Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water and grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you ever bring us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What should I do with these people? In a little while, they will stone me." So here we can see the Israelites back at it again, complaining as they always do. And when we read these stories, I think it's really easy to be like, man, those Israelites are so annoying. Why are they whining all the time? They literally complain about everything. And it's like, what are they doing? We're reading this thinking, you should be so grateful. You just got out of Egypt where you were being oppressed, and now you're complaining that you're hungry and thirsty. But I think we are those Israelites, right? We're constantly complaining and whining about everything. If things don't go our way, if things aren't handed to us on a silver platter, we always complain and we grumble just like the Israelites. It's easy to sit in our position, read the little text, and be like, those silly the Israelites, but we're just like them. And if you notice, Moses' response kind of stands out to me. He's crying out to the Lord, "What should I do with these people?" Even Moses, the one God's chosen to lead these people out of here with extreme patience. He's such a patient guy. I wish I was like him. We can still see him even here get annoyed with them. He's like, I don't even know what to do with these guys. God, help me, please. They're just complaining. And I feel like I could relate to him. You know, when you have friends or family who are just really negative and just they're not happy with anything and they're just complaining, it's like grating on you and your energy, right? Some of you guys are looking around at each other, nudging each other, like, yeah, that's you. It's really annoying. And so I understand Moses' complaint here, like, my gosh, what do I do with these people, right? It's kind of similar to us. And so we can see here they're complaining because they're really thirsty. Last time was about food, this time about water, those basic needs, asking why God isn't giving them what they need. So picking up in verse 5, continuing on, the Lord answered Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take the staff you struck the Nile with in your hand and go. I'm going to stand there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. When you hit the rock, water will come out of it, and the people will drink." Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites complained and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" So he named it Massah and Meribah because of the complaining and the testing, because the word Massah in Hebrew means testing, because they're testing the Lord, saying, why aren't you providing for us? And Meribah means quarreling, because they're quarreling amongst each other. So that's what that means. If you're like, why is that significant? That's what that means. And when it was talking about take the staff that you struck the Nile with, if you're here with us a couple weeks ago, or if not, maybe know the story, when God was sending the plagues through Egypt, because Pharaoh wasn't letting the Israelites out of there, one of them was turning the water in Egypt to blood. And so Moses was the one performing these signs. God empowered him to do this. And he took his staff and struck the water, and then it turned to blood. And all the Egyptians were just having blood in all their waters. They couldn't drink it. It was a whole big thing. So this is like a reflection of that, saying take the staff that you struck the Nile with and strike the rock to produce the water. So this is almost like an opposite type deal, where the last time he used the staff to perform a sign with water was bringing destruction, right? The plagues to the Egyptians. And then this time we can see the reverse of that, where this time it's an example of God's provision. So one time bringing destruction, then this time bringing provision, where it's producing the water. And that contrast is there because the Egyptians, under Pharaoh, they were the ones not acknowledging God, not accepting him, right? And denying him and his power and his sovereignty. And then here, the ones he's providing for are the Israelites, who are God's chosen people. So we can see that. I'm going to continue on here in 17, verse 8. It's a new story. At Rephidim, Amalek came and fought against Israel. Moses said to Joshua, select some men for us and go fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with God's staff in my hand. Joshua did as Moses had told him and fought against Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. While Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, but whenever he put his hand down, Amalek prevailed. When Moses' hands grew heavy, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat down on it. Then Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until the sun went down. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his army with the sword. So we can see kind of a crazy picture here. God's providing in a really unusual way, where their Israelites are defeating the Amalekites when Moses throws his hands up. And if you notice, I realize this, it doesn't say God told Moses, put up your hands so you're winning. It just says when Moses put his hands up, the Israelites were winning. So did he just realize that on his own, happen to accidentally discover that when he throws his hands up, they're winning? You know what I mean? He's on the top of the hill, he's got his staff, he's looking all cool. He sees the people down on the battlefield, and he's watching them, and he's cheering them on. He's yeah, like you do with sports teams, because football season is upon us. And so you're watching, right, and you're cheering. He's cheering for the Israelites. His team's yeah, and he's whoa, they're doing really good. Look at that. That's so cool. And then he's oh no, they're losing, right? Because he put his hands down. And he's wait, if I go, oh, look at that, and they start winning. He's hey, that's pretty cool. So then he's well, I better keep my hands up, I guess, right? So he's just chilling there. And obviously, his arms are going to get really tired. I mean, there's a whole battle happening right there. Imagine if you were cheering on your sports teams. This goes right along with our series, The Lord is Our Banner, right? Drew was talking about how we all kind of wear banners for the things that we support every day, like sports teams, sporting their logos and their jerseys and stuff like that. We got their banner. In this way, Lord is our banner, right? So Moses is cheering on his team, going for it. If you were watching football, say today or next Sunday, as you do, and you're cheering on your team, and you have to be cheering the whole time or else your team's going to lose. The second you stop cheering, it's oh no, the other team's scoring. So you got to keep your hands up the whole time, celebrating them. It'd be exhausting. And so Moses is up here, and homie's getting tired, man. His arms are sore, and his legs are tired, so they prop a rock under him so he can sit down, and they holding his arms up so he can be cheering on. I just think it's a crazy picture. He's got his hands up there in order for them to win. But kind of a cool image, I think. Picking up in verse 14. The Lord then said to Moses, write this down on a scroll as a reminder and recite it to Joshua. I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven. And Moses built an altar and named it, The Lord is my banner. He said, indeed, my hand is lifted up towards the Lord's throne. The Lord will be at war with Amalek from generation to generation. So we got the Lord is my banner is what he names the place. And hey, look at that. That's the name of our series. How perfect is that? The Lord is my banner, which in Hebrew is Yahweh Nissi, which I think sounds really cool. Probably didn't say it right. I don't speak Hebrew, but I think it sounds really nice, so I want to share that with you guys. And so it's talking about God being at war with Amalek, right, from generation to generation. So what's that about? Is God just really not like this dude Amalek? What's that about? Well, Amalek, in the same way that Israel is the name of the dude, Israel, Jacob, who we've talked about, Amalek is a dude, but also representative of the nation, okay? But further, Amalek's also a representation of all those who reject God. In the same way that Israelites are kind of a representation of the followers of Jesus. Like we are the new Israel, right? We've entered this new covenant. We are a reflection of the Israelites being the new Israel, those who have faith in Jesus. In the same way, this Amalek that he's talking about, he's been at war with from generation to generation for the rest of time, is the people who reject God, like the Egyptians and people today. So that's what that means. And that's the end of that chapter. So a quick recap for those of you who maybe fell asleep or zoned out. I got you. I feel you. Don't worry about it. I'll give you a quick recap. We can see in this chapter, I think, two important things. The first one being that God continued to provide for the Israelites. We see time and time again the Israelites complaining, but God coming in to the rescue, providing for them. And then a second thing is we can see a contrast between God's people and the world, which was highlighted by, the new sign with the staff, this time providing water instead of destruction brought with the plague, and with the Amalekites being defeated and the Israelites winning. So we can see that contrast between God's people and the rest of the world. So now we're all on the same page. If you did fall asleep, you're back on. You're like, okay, I know what we're talking about now. So let's get into the lessons for disciples. What can we take away from this? First off, number one, for the Lord to be our banner, we must glorify God in his provision. For the Lord to be our banner, we must glorify God in his provision. So we see every single day, if we look out and really pay attention, we can see God providing for us. In the Bible, we can see these examples here that we're talking about in Exodus 17, providing the water, providing the wind in that battle. But every single day in our lives, God is constantly providing for us. Everything we have is from him and because of him. And so if we really look out and pay attention, we can see all the amazing ways that God provides for us, all the blessings that we receive, that a lot of times we maybe take for granted. If you're anything like me, I feel like actually all people, humans, can be kind of selfish. It's really easy to just think about yourself and what you have and the things you want instead of really being grateful and being thankful for everything that's around us. But we should be taking time to recognize everything that God has provided for us and glorifying him in that, being grateful, being thankful to him who has provided for us. And as God provides, sometimes he provides in really weird ways, like Moses got to keep his hands up or else they lose. He provides in really crazy ways. And when I think crazy, and since it is Youth Takeover weekend, I think my ministry that I get to serve with, the junior high and high school ministry, youth ministry, that gets pretty crazy, like really crazy. And the kids, I love them to death, but my goodness, it can be wild and insane and kind of a little weird. God provides in weird ways, crazy ways, and I think the junior highers and high schoolers are just a perfect example of that. If you guys don't know, a couple weeks ago, we did a game day where instead of normal youth group, I had them come back here and we set up like a bunch of games here. I organized stuff out here, put cups, and we did hula hoop things and all sorts of different things. And we just played games for like 2 hours, and it got really insane because they're, like I said, the attention spans are going everywhere, and you gotta, rally them all in to play these games, and it gets insane. And I was like, well, since this game day, I'm splitting them into two teams the whole time. There's one team of kids and the other team of kids, and all the games we played was just one team versus the other. I was like, well, there's gonna be a losing team, so I gotta do something with that. So I made a little punishment for the losing team where I brought from my home a blender, like a blender. And I brought lots of ingredients, like weird ones that don't go together at all. I got some ketchup, okay, essential. Got mustard, sounds good so far. And I threw some grape jelly. We got some, good old cottage cheese. You can't forget soy sauce. There was some, garlic. We had lots, I was just like all the slew of disgusting ingredients and condiments, and top it off with some chicken nuggets to give it some, girth, and then use some water for the liquid along with the soy sauce. And I blended all that up. And at the end of the game day, whoever had the most losses, whoever's the losing team, I was like, your punishment, you got to drink this. So I blended all of them, poured it in cups. Obviously, some of the kids were like, no, that's disgusting. We're not doing that. And they didn't drink it. I mean, I didn't drink it. I couldn't force them to if I wasn't doing it. I was like, no, I'm your leader. I had to blend it for you guys. I can't be drinking that. What are you talking about? You guys drink it. But a lot of them didn't. But the weird thing, crazy thing, like I said, the really interesting, some of the people who were on the winning team were like, pour me a cup. I want to drink some of that. It's like, what is happening right now? And some of the winning team started drinking that disgusting concoction. I don't know what's going on with them, but whatever. So we can see God just provides in like really crazy ways, especially with the youth here. Just really odd, but really great at the same time. I'm so thankful for the position I get to be in. It's been an amazing opportunity being able to be the intern here for the past little over a year, and now get to serve in charge of youth ministry. I think God's provided for me in that way, where it gets crazy and it gets fun, but I love it, and I'm so thankful for it. And I think we can all look for things in our lives that maybe are a little wild, maybe little things we didn't expect or can kind of shake us up, but ultimately things that we're so grateful for. So also, if you guys will open your Bibles with me, I'm going to go to a verse in John in the New Testament. If you guys want, so you guys don't have to do work flipping around, my passage is going to be at the very bottom of page 604 in those Bibles, if you use those. We're going to read John chapter 4. John 4, starting in verse 7. I'll let you guys take a second to get there. John chapter 4, verse 7. I'll start us off. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. "Give me a drink," Jesus said to her, because his disciples had gone into town to buy food. "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" She asked him, for Jews do not associate with Samaritans. The Jews and the Samaritans are constantly clashing. They really despise each other. And we can see Jesus being a Jew and this woman being a Samaritan. So she's shocked. Jesus answered, "If you knew the gift of God and who is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would ask him, and he would give you living water." "Sir," said the woman, "you don't even have a bucket, and the well is deep, so where do you get this living water? You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and livestock." Jesus said, "Everyone who drinks from this water will get thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never get thirsty again. In fact, the water I will give him will become a well of water springing up in him for eternal life." "Sir," the woman said to him, "give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and come here to draw water." "Go call your husband," he told her, "and come back here." "I don't have a husband," she answered. "You have answered correctly. You have correctly said, 'I don't have a husband,'" Jesus said. "For you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." "Sir," the woman replied, "I see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews say that the place to worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus told her, "Believe me, woman, an hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. Your Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, because salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Yes, the Father wants such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth." The woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Jesus told her, "I, the one speaking to you, am he." Just then, moving into verse 27, his disciples arrived, and they were amazed that he was talking with a woman, yet no one said, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the people, "Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They left the town and made their way to him. We'll skip ahead a bit if you guys will jump ahead to verse 39 with me, a little bit farther down. "Now many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of what the woman said when she testified, 'He told me everything I did.'" All right, that's where we'll stop there. I know that was kind of a long story. If you guys zoned out, I totally understand. You're kind of spacing out. So I'll give you a little recap. So we got this Samaritan woman drawing water from the well, and Jesus comes up and asks for her to give him water. And so right off the bat, like it was talking about the contrast between Samaritans and the Jews, that conflict there. Further, she is a woman, as it mentioned, and back then in that culture, women were not to really be talked to by men. So already got the cross cultures with the Jews and Samaritans who hate each other, and then on top of that, she's a woman, and Jesus is still talking to her. Kind of person, if she's a woman and then a Samaritan, how she'd be viewed by the Jews as like a total outcast. She'd be shunned, she'd be put to the side, she wouldn't have a place at all. Yet Jesus is still coming to her and talking to her. And we can learn just right from that how we should be acting. That's a perfect example of what we should be doing in our everyday lives, is finding those people whom maybe society kind of rejects and pushes aside, people who don't really have a place, who kind of feel like outsiders. Those are the people we should be reaching. Those are the people we should be trying to talk to. And Jesus highlights that perfectly right here by talking to her. And then we can see he talks about this water that he provides is this living water. and this living water that's for eternal life. And so it's kind of a weird thing. Like he's not handing out Dasani to everybody. You got that Aquafina up in here. He's talking about this living water, this eternal life that he's providing. And talking about God's provisions that we should be glorifying him through. This is the ultimate provision, is that salvation that we receive through Jesus Christ. Because as humans, we're born into sin. We're sinful, right? Every single day I mess up. Every single day I sin in some way. We all do. And of God being completely righteous, completely holy, completely perfect, his bar is up here, right? He demands perfection, and we can never, ever meet that. So ultimately, the sad truth is what we deserve. It would be death then. So the grace comes in where he sends Jesus to die for us, die the death that we are supposed to die, comes down, lives a perfect life, then dies out for us, so that in following him and in faith through Jesus, we can be saved and we receive this salvation. And that, I think, is the best way that God provides for us. There's a perfect example right there. That's like the ultimate provision, is sending his son Jesus to die for us so that through faith we can receive this grace that we could never do anything to deserve, right? It's like a free gift that we're given that none of us could do anything to deserve. And so a great thing that the Samaritan woman did that we should be taking from is how afterwards, after speaking to Jesus, she runs into town and she's like, yo, this dude knew about me. He knew everything I did. This guy's awesome. And she's on fire for Jesus, right? She's like, check this dude out. He's super cool. And it says many Samaritans from that town believed in Jesus because of what the woman said. So her testimony is what drew the people in. It was her running out in the town saying, check this Jesus dude out, that made everybody be like, whoa, maybe this is something, maybe he's really cool. It was her excitement, her praising Jesus that drew people in. And that's what we should be doing, which is really difficult for us a lot of times, is to kind of stand out there and be like, whoa, this thing, because everybody might judge us, and we don't want that. Which moves us perfectly into our second lesson for disciple we're going to be discussing today, which is, for the Lord to be our banner, we must be courageous in being different. And this is a very difficult thing. For me, personally, this is a very difficult thing. The Samaritan woman may sound like a piece of cake. She runs into town, she's like, yo, this Jesus guy's awesome, maybe check him out. And everybody's like, whoa, okay, sounds good. But I do not have as easy of a time as the Samaritan woman does, is kind of standing out. I was talking about my shirts. Those make a statement. Those are loud and obnoxious. That definitely stands out. It catches everybody's eyes. But in terms of speaking out about things, sometimes I get really nervous. I get scared to stand out and kind of be different and really put myself out there and be bold and be courageous. That's what we've got to be doing. That's what Jesus is calling us to do, is to stand out there and be bold in our faith for him. And just a few weeks ago, I wrapped up a series with the junior hires where we were talking about being bold and saying that, being different. We were reading through the book of Daniel. If you guys know the stories like Daniel in the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, all those types of things. And we're talking about how those are great examples of standing out and being different, and how we should apply that to our lives and be standing out for the things that we believe in. And if you guys don't know me, I really don't like conflict. Conflict makes me so nervous. My stomach starts hurting. I get really sweaty. My heart starts beating. Hate confrontation, except for within my family. I'll fight with my mom, my dad, my brother till the cows come home. But aside from the three of them, hate it. Absolutely. I try to avoid confrontation at all costs. Like I said, except for inside the family. I'll argue with them well past when I should stop. Enough about me, though. I'll talk to my therapist about that. We could do another series of sermons on Brian's problems, but enough of that. It's easy, I think, as humans, we kind of are afraid of that judgment that we might receive. It's like, what if people look at me differently? What if people think I'm stupid? What if people don't agree with me, and then maybe they don't like me because of it? And so I was talking, especially for junior hires and high schoolers. High school and junior high is rough, man. There's bullies everywhere, people who will hate you because of what you believe and your opinions that you have, and whatever you think, then they don't like you because of it. But I think that carries on well past high school, I think, into adult life, and everywhere. There's always that fear of standing out and being different because of what other people might think about you. Maybe you lose friends, you'll lose family members, you'll lose job opportunities because you're standing out there being bold and courageous in your faith. It might make people dislike you. And through this persecution, it can be really tough to still glorify God in that, because it's really difficult when you get persecuted. I think here in America, we're pretty lucky in terms of persecution for our faith, but in other areas of the world can be crazy, right, on how bad it is, but it's still bad here. Even the small examples is just that standing out and being judged is terrifying enough if you're anything like me. But there's this passage in Isaiah. If you guys want to open it up with me, you can. Isaiah chapter 49. It's on page 411 if you're using the orange Bibles. You don't have to use them, though. Isaiah chapter 49, I'm going to be starting in verse 5. So Isaiah 49, 5. I'll give you guys a second. And now, says the Lord, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, so that Israel might be gathered to him. For I am honored in the sight of the Lord, and my God is my strength. He says, it is not enough for you to be my servant, raising up the tribes of Jacob and restoring the protected ones of Israel. I will also make you a light for the nations, to be my salvation to the ends of the earth. This is what the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel, his Holy One, says, to one who is despised, to one abhorred by the people, to a servant of rulers. Kings will see, princes will stand up, and they will all bow down because of the Lord, who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel, and he has chosen you. So we can see here this idea of Israel being a light for the nations, right? God says he's making Israel a light for the nations. And just in the same way that we are that new Israel, that means he's calling us to be that light. We should be a light for the nations in today's world. And what that looks like is not being afraid to stand out, being courageous, being bold, putting yourself out there. We should be the light that draws people in. And in doing that, then, if we are the light, if we have this faith and we should be standing out, then that means we need to kind of put ourselves in check and think about, well, if I'm this light, then how are my actions and my behaviors reflecting that? Am I doing a good job being the light? Am I being an example? Am I somebody who people look to me and through me see Jesus? Because that's exactly what we should be doing if we are the light. And so we kind of got to challenge ourselves and be like, well, are these things I'm doing, if somebody were to look at me, do they see Jesus? And maybe not. And maybe that's something we need to work on. We need to be in that example. We can't be out there. We should not look like the world. There should be a difference, right? We should be standing out there, because if you're this light, then you should not be surrounded in this darkness. I have this passage in Matthew that I'm going to read, Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 10. It says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. You are blessed when they insult you and persecute you and falsely say every kind of evil against you because of me. Be glad and rejoice, because your reward is great in heaven. For that is how they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Pick it up in verse 13. "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt should lose its taste, how can it be made salty? It's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city situated on a hill cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand, and it gives light for all those who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." So like I was talking about Israel needing to be this light, and us needing to be this light as followers, here it's talking about the light. The light should not be hidden. We're not under a basket, right? We're a city situated on a hill. We should be out there for people to see. And I'm not saying it's easy, and the Bible isn't saying it's easy. It's talking about, it says through persecution, right? It's talking about how the people abhorred it was talking about in Israel. The people detest it. So the world will look at us and not like us because of it. You'll run into that if you haven't already. At some point in your lives, we all will, where people will dislike us. And like I was talking about the examples with high school and junior high, those bullies, but in our everyday lives, people will persecute us, people will dislike us, right, and will be detested. But like it said in Isaiah, one day kings will bow. One day everybody will recognize, right? And here it's talking about in Matthew and how blessed are you when you are persecuted for righteousness' sake, which is kind of a crazy idea to grasp maybe, because it's like, what, even when I'm being hurt and being punished for not doing anything wrong, these people are disliking me, that's a good thing? But absolutely, just like we should be glorifying God through provisions, we should be even when he takes us through persecution, even when we go through these trials, these difficult times where people are maybe being rude to us or whatever, disliking us, is still giving God all the glory through that and rejoicing because of it, being glad through the persecution, which is it's a tricky thing, but it's what we're being called to do, because we are the light and we need to be standing out for others to see. So, number one, we should be recognizing that God's providing for us to be his banner. We should be giving him all the glory and provisions. And then on top of that, if we're his banner, we need to be courageous. We need to be bold, being able to stand out there, be that light for him, and be a good example for when people see the light, they can see Jesus, and we can help them build a relationship through us because we're reflecting God. I want to thank you guys. I'll close this in prayer, but thank you guys for joining us today for Youth Takeover. Could we give the band a round of applause? I wanted to do that. They just killed it. They did so good. And they put that whole thing on themselves. The little medley they did, Matthew thought of that himself, and he constructed it. They led it. They didn't really get help from anybody. They kind of put that on. Then we had awesome junior hires and high schoolers greeting for us, passing those communion trays, passing the offering. How awesome is that? I think it's super cool. So thank you for joining us. I think it's a cool weekend to be here and just see how on fire the kids are, the youth are for God, and I think that's so inspiring as adults to draw from their example and maybe kind of check yourselves, be like, well, if they're doing this, I need to step up my game, right? Look at these kids doing this. So I think that's super cool. So if you'll close for us, I'll close us in prayer, and then we can get out of here. You guys grab donuts and leave. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet here with friends, with family, with loved ones, and just glorify you, worship you, and get in your word to learn about you and focus on you and hopefully try to grow in our relationships. Thank you for all your provisions you provide for us every single day. You pour out your blessings on us, and we're so grateful and so thankful for that. Help us to not take those blessings for granted, but praise you in everything that we do. Give the glory straight back to you who provided it all for us. Also, I pray as we go out into our lives this week and in the coming weeks that we can be that light and stand out. Be that city on that hill, that light that shines, to bring people to you, to be an example for you, and to help us to be bold and courageous and not be afraid of the persecution that comes, but ultimately that we'll be glorified through that you will be glorified through that. And I pray that we just have a great week, and thank you for all the wonderful youth who are using their talents and their abilities to serve you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for sending your son to die for us. In his name we pray. Amen.